All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to MakerDAO Weekly Governance and Risk Meeting. My name is Peyton. I go by Pros11 online, and I am a governance facilitator here at MakerDAO. This is our 194th Governance and Risk Meeting here on Thursday, June 9th, 2022. I want to say a big thank you and welcome to everybody who's here on this call. Got a bunch of core unit members, some delegates, other interested parties, people just generally curious about how Maker is doing and what are some of the issues we're grappling with as a DAO. A few ground rules to go over as we get into things here. This is obviously a recorded meeting, so hello if you're watching on YouTube. Because of that, let's try to make sure we don't speak over each other on the mics. There's a couple facilitation tools I'd appreciate you using if you're able, one of which is the raised hand feature on Zoom under reactions. If you have something you'd like to add after the current speaker is done talking, you can go ahead and raise your hand as David is demonstrating for us now. And that'll let me know I have someone to call in as soon as the current speaker finishes their thought. If you're unable or otherwise unwilling to hop on the mic, you can always drop your comment in the chat and we're happy to work through it when it's conversationally appropriate. Cool, I think that more or less settles it for rules. Let's kick things off with our agenda. All right, so we, as usual, we'll start with our governance roundup. That'll take care of the latest votes, the MIPs update, our maker improvement proposals and sub-proposals, and finally a look at what's going on in the forum. Next, we have a couple of initiative updates today, one from the brand, group core unit, however they're not a formalized core unit, but the brand group from Growth will be given an update, as well as the proposers behind Makershire Hathaway, that proposal essentially to do some investing with maker funds. So we'll be hearing from both of them today, which should be a good chance to ask questions on updates and get a bigger picture of what these groups have in mind. And then finally, we'll kind of have an open mic discussion on initiatives. So anyone who's wanting to give an update on what they've been working on, or anyone who wants to ask a question on something they have lost track of, that'll be the time to do that. Cool. I think that will do it for our agenda, and I'll jump straight into votes. A bit of a quiet week in some regards on the voting front. Do have a couple of green light polls to highlight for you. Excellent. So those two are going to be the credit card limited and the straight sex proposals. Voting for those green lights ends on Monday, June 20th. So do be sure to express your opinion on those collaterals if you feel so inclined to do so. Excellent. There are, of course, a couple of priority polls as well. Worth noting that those aren't part of the formal governance process, but a way of trying to get into the idea of what's happening with maker holders and how they feel about prioritization within DAO. Those were down for a moment due to a polling issue with the voting, but that has since been corrected. You can read the postmortem on what happened there on our forum, but the right choice votes are back up and running, and we would appreciate your sentiment there. 𝘱𝘊𝘆 will be giving a more thorough update once those have had some time to get some votes in. Excellent. So I'll take us to an executive update. Last week's executive was quite hefty. A lot of different things included in there. It is passed, but pending our governance pause delay there before execution. So in there was the strategic happiness budget distribution in a couple streams. We had recognized delegate compensation, parameter changes from the open market committee, stage 1 for vault offboarding for 5 of our vaults, as well as the StarkNet bridge debt ceiling limit and a few authority changes in there. So as I said before, we're waiting for that to execute, but it's already been passed. Next week, we will not have a planned executive as part of this one being a big one. We don't have much to include next week and felt it would be good to save resources and push the two small items to the following week there. So that'll do it for the executive update. If you have questions or want to follow along with executives, you can always check out the new spells channel in our Discord. now I will hand it off to Pablo to give us a MIPS update.
Yep, thank you, Peyton, and hello everyone. Pablo here with a MIPS update. So the formal submission window for June's cycle has closed, and we've had 11 formal submissions. 2 top-level MIPs, MIP 74, which introduces permissionless open market operations via the DSS Kiln module, and MIP 75, which introduces task forces. We also have the first task force onboarding proposal, which of course cannot be ratified unless its parent MIP is ratified too. We have 2 new budgets for existing core units, one for the growth core unit with multiple options, one for 5.08 million 𝘳 and one for 4.21 million 𝘳. The other budget is for the financial strategy core unit for 1.3 million 𝘳. Both of these budgets have a duration of 1 year. And again, these budgets incorporate new notions introduced by the recently ratified MIP 40 amendment. A Know Your MIP call with Adrian from Strategic Finance, one of its authors, is happening tomorrow at 16 UTC. He's going to be walking us through the process of creating a budget under this new framework. We also have 2 facilitator onboardings for existing core units, one for 𝘱𝘂𝘁 for immune file security, and one for 𝘮𝘪𝘴 for data insights. We have a, sorry, yes, strategic finance, not financial strategy. Sorry, I'm incorrected by Adrian. We have a proposal set for onboarding the SES incubated lending oversight core unit led by Luca Pro. And next slide, please. Finally, we have the Makershire SPF Special Purpose Fund requesting 10 million 𝘳 to experiment with various yield generation strategies. An amendment for MIP 16 so that it reflects the new executive cadence, and a budget amendment for the 𝘰𝘯𝘰𝘪 network. This one should have gone up for vote in May. I kind of dropped the ball there, so apologies for that. It is instead entering the June's cycle. We are currently in the process of writing the ratification polls for these proposals. They'll go up on Monday, 13th. Now let's do a quick recap of the proposals in RFC. We've seen no new additions to this by now old acquaintances. We have 1 top-level MIP, MIP 72, which authorizes Sixes Capital as a real-world asset arranger for MakerDAO. Patrick J is aiming to become a GovAlpha facilitator. As we all know, with Long for Wisdom having stepped down from their role, GovAlpha currently has only 1 facilitator, Peyton Rose. And finally, we have 2 amendments, one that amends the coordinate onboarding process. There's an upcoming Know Your MIP episode for it. Date is June 14th, 5 p.m. UTC. And we have MIP 42 SP21, which amends MIP 0 to introduce the notion of retrospection dates for MIPs. And finally, let me remind you again that ratification polls for the formally submitted proposals are going up on Monday 13th and will run for 2 weeks. And we have 2 upcoming Know Your MIP calls. One of them happening tomorrow at 16 UTC, and the other is happening next Tuesday at 5 UTC. 17 UTC. And that's pretty much all from me. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Pablo, and definitely take the new slide format. Hope to see a bunch of people at the Know Your MIP call tomorrow. Nice to see those back in action as well. All right, that should take us to our forum updates, and it looks like Artem is ready to go on that.
Yep, just posted the link. So hey everybody, happy Thursday to everyone, and just gonna go over quickly the forum at a glance, reviewing the past week's top announcements, news, discussions, and signal requests, and it'll be covering the week of June 2nd to June 8th, and we'll begin with our week's announcements. Starting up, we have a new recognized delegate, Chris Black, and let me know if I'm mispronouncing the name. But he presented his delegate platform at the Meet Your Delegate call that happened earlier today. And the video recording for that call will be up on YouTube very soon, as well as there's additional information on Chris's platform and core values available both on the post and in the forum at a glance. So check it out. And next up, we have two governance-related postmortems this week. And the first one is posted by GovAlpha, which updates on a clerical error that led to the onboard amend Keeper Network proposal, which wasn't voted, but it was mistakenly archived and marked as accepted on the MakerDAO forums. And the second postmortem is by the Dux team, providing an update on the two most recent prioritization sentiment votes, which had to be unfortunately taken down from the portal's UI due to some voting issues, but the polls are back up and the issues have been hot fixed, and there's a longer, more sustainable solution being put into place right now. So for more details and background information on these postmortems, check out the posts. And next up, the quarterly strategy review call was held earlier this week on June 7th. The recording is available on YouTube and is posted on the thread for anyone who couldn't make the call. And additionally, the slide deck that was presented is also available in the comments on the thread. And now we're moving up into our discussions. And first up, the new SES legal research team submitted a post on the idea of applying legal analysis to certain governance decisions. The community members have brought up their concerns around legal risks and regulatory consequences of proposals that are made to MakerDAO. In an effort to address these concerns, the SES legal research team initiates a discussion on the legal risks to the protocol, and their proposals to the protocol and how to best approach a lack of legal analysis. And this thread aims to gauge community sentiment around the topic and encourages all feedback and ideas on possible strategies. And next up, we have GFX Labs plans to launch a new fractional reserve project that's called the Interest Protocol. And the system is based on an over-collateralized stablecoin called USDI. And the project's white paper references the Maker protocol several times. And in response to this, Matt NZ asks the community whether we think that this new protocol can be a direct challenger to Maker. And there were a large number of people who responded with their opinion to this matter. If you're interested in some of these responses, check out this week's forum at a glance for more details on that. And then next up, we have a first-time poster, PVL, who submitted a thread as part of an effort to seek funding and also gauge interest in collaboration opportunities for a Web3 DeFi native prediction modeling and decision-making tool. And the proposal is very technical and shows potential use cases that help with decision-making and offering support tools, which can be used for things such as during unique market conditions. It's a pretty intricate post. So if you're interested in that stuff, definitely recommend to check it out. And now we're moving on to our top signal request. We have 3 signal requests. Well, actually 2, 1 just closed, but I'll review it as well. First up, we have Rema, who submits a signal request replacing the previous signal by Andrew Bourbon to restart the burn. And this signal is a trial of the new MIPS 74 permissionless open market operations, which was now tested for its effectiveness. The risk team believes that it is a critical time for MakerDAO community to reach a consensus about what to do with the surplus buffer. And their solution is to help maintain a sustainable surplus buffer, making sure that it's higher than the current level to support risk mitigation and growth, while also burning a small amount of the surplus buffer. And it was seeking a community vote on some of these actions, and the signal did end today with the finishing majority vote being yes at 44%. And next up, we have ACE. And just mentioning Velodrome, that's an AMM on Solidly as a public good, providing deep liquidity and low slippage to token pairs. and MakerDAO was eligible to receive an airdrop of 𝘰𝑛FT, equivalent to 1% of the initial voting power for the new protocol launching on Optimism on May 31st. And 𝘰𝑛FT will allow Maker to direct emissions to a liquidity pool of our choosing, thereby increasing liquidity of the pairs and receiving trading fees and bribes for those pools as well. The Velodrome team requests to initially manage the 𝘰𝑛FT on the MakerDAO until their DAO is ready to manage it, and they propose DAI USDC and DAI OP pairs to launch to ensure that emissions are high enough to attract liquidity. And so in response to all this, ACE was asking the community the following questions. 1, should MakerDAO incentivize the pairs recommended by the Velodrome team? Should MakerDAO transfer 𝘰𝑛FT to a governance-owned multi-sig using MIP 47? What should MakerDAO do with the trading fees? And the signal did close earlier today, and the finishing votes are yes at 57% to incentivize the pairs that are recommended, no at 38%, to instead use a governance-owned address to transfer the 𝘰𝑛FT, and at 46%, the decision was to send the trading fees to MakerDAO Optimism governance address. Ooh, okay, and finally, for our newest signal request, recognized delegate just in case introduces the defines the dust parameter, and additionally he reminds us that the last time dust parameters was changed was back in December of 2021, and since then gas prices have fallen in preparation of market sentiment potentially returning to normal. Just in case suggests and asks the community whether dust limits should be prioritized again for optimization. Now, the signal ends on June 15th, and the current vote results are between no and abstain, with no sitting at 48% and abstain at 45%. And that's it from me. For more announcements, some discussions, check out the forum at a glance. I did post it. I accidentally forgot to delete that part where it says forum post coming soon, but it's up. So check it out. Thank you.
Also appreciate it, Artem, and it's like we got a good discourse going on how to pronounce Velodrome. All right, that should take us into our initiative updates. Like I said, we do have 2 today. I believe we're going to be hearing first from the brand team over from Maker Growth. Excellent.
I know Mariana is taking over. Do you want to share your screen, or are the slides in there?
Yeah, I would like to share my screen, please.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Get you set up with permissions here. Thanks for the patience. And yeah, a reminder to, as you have questions as the presentation goes along, feel free to drop them in chat. Or you can raise your hand if you want to kind of be added to an impromptu speakers list. All right,
you should be able to share now. Yeah.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Can you see my screen?
Looking good.
Okay, well, this is a little update for the Maker brand team. It's a team that it's being incubated inside the Maker Growth, and this is what we have been doing so far since we post our information on the forum, right? Let's start with our Twitter. When I say our Twitter, it's MakerDAO official account that we asked for some time ago. And this is sort of the things that we've been working on. We've been working with, for example, with Peyton on Spaces. He is a wonderful host to make announcements. And also we are working on some podcast production coming soon. And well, as usual, we do threads with informations and partners information too, all down information with the updates, yeah, and conversations around the crypto Twitter scenes, right? The questions, polls, and subtweeting. Yeah, why we are doing this? Because we want to be key opinion leaders and be the source of information for what is happening, not in Maker, but let's say also in crypto in general, right? That it's something more like an horizontal thing rather than a vertical. And we want to be, again, these key opinion leaders, okay? These are some of the metrics of our Twitter. Just take into consideration that the last tweet of the Foundation Times was around August 2021. And we started tweeting around February, and you can see the impact of that, right? We've been silent for much too long on Twitter. We lost a lot of the engagements that we have in the past, and well, other accounts too surpass us in the number of followers, but we are working really hard to provide good content, to provide a high engagement rate. And we are now working on a set of metrics. These are kind of like pretty simplistic metrics, but we are working on another set of metrics and OKRs for the social media that we will be sharing with you very soon, okay? And this is like our pyramid in terms of how we manage the Twitter account. We have the announcement table. I don't know if you remember that our content leader, Tobal, posted some time ago in the forum that we have a public announcement table. You can check that on announcements.makergrowth.com, because we believe that transparency is one of the key things of our DAO. And you can see there all the upcoming announcements that we are working on. And then after that, we have the content creation for each of these announcements. And if you click in the announcement, you will see that each announcement is treated like a project, okay? Then we share that with our press release and comms agencies that to see if we can extend this message to other media outlet, if we can work or improve that message, create PRs around it, and have a better outreach, and then we post that on Twitter, okay? Again, talking about PR and opportunities, this is some of the things that we've been doing in that front. We did a brand analysis on how it's MakerDAO and DAI been taking on the media, and this is some of the actions that we've been doing with the agency, right? We are modeling right now the messaging and narratives around MakerDAO. We announced new partners and features of the protocol. We are building new media relationship. We are crafting different stories. There's a pretty cool one that it's being worked on right now. It's called DAI. It's a different stablecoin. We are also commission research around MakerDAO and some academia articles, right? To start having a different kind of content, right? Not only content made by journalists, but also from other sources, okay? And also we are giving events support, okay? For example, we've been doing a pretty cool thing in permissionless since, well, after, you know, Terra fiasco, we pushed to have Sam there since this guy 𝘧𝘪𝘯𝘠𝘓 wasn't going to attend that, and we get that slot for free. And we are really pushing that kind of things. We also set up a lot of interviews for Luca Prosperi and Sam and other spokesperson. Also, we provide a lot of media training and media support for other DAO members. And we started to make some really cool sponsorship on Bangladesh podcast to start showing the crypto scene that we are alive, okay? These are some of the special initiatives also that we were working on. The first one is, as you may know, the Nature Initiative, in which bolts can claim a POAP, and that POAP will plant 10 trees. Since Sunday that we present this, 46 bolts were open, and we planted 116 trees. Okay, we built an automatic dashboard. We will be posting very soon some of the updates and how and where the trees were planted, or how many square kilometers we were reforesting with this, okay? And we are also now preparing our next one, okay? So stay tuned because we will have some pretty cool news about this. What is cool about special initiatives is that they keep the conversation going on around MakerDAO, right? And this is a cool thing, that it's not so expensive and it's really fun for the whole scene. Then this is mostly what we want to do in case that the growth budget is approved with the brand option, right? We believe that we should do a brand research and start implementing the findings of those research in our website, okay? We need a visual system, okay? We have a world of assets right now in the DAO. We have the PSM, the MakerBolts, the 𝘰𝘰𝘮𝘳𝘓, the teleport oracles. The DAO itself is just a big asset, right? And the core units too. And we want to develop a visual system to represent them, to have their own logo, so we can have, you know, a standardization on how we talk about all the things. And this is for example, some of the explorations that we are doing on the different aspects, right? Sorry. Yeah. And let's see, for example, one of the things that we've been exploring in terms of design. This is the nature video, in case you didn't see it.
Opening a Maker Vault, it's like creating a new life, just like planting a seed in nature. The Maker Vault is a contribution to
This is why we created Maker Teleport, the portal to connect the universe without losing security or scalability. It doesn't matter where you are or where you want to go. Don't wait for slow transfers. Teleport your diamond.
Well, are all explorations, right? There's no final things. There are just things we play around with the agencies that we hire, and we are trying to find something cool, right? Again, all these things needs to be done by branding research, in which we can define like the whole visual idea of the protocol and the messaging around. And yeah, we have like you know, different options as you saw.
Opening a Maker Vault, it's like. Then again,
related to the web and the assets that we have to give them visibility, right? If you go right now into our website, you can see that not only things are not being updated, but it doesn't have like a proper guideline, you know. We need to talk about more about the PSM, about the MakerBolts, the V3M, teleport, the Zoom teleport, right? The oracles too, and the DAO. And we believe that we have to do that after this branding research to have a better understanding of where we need to go in terms of brand. And then obviously, as let's say as a final step, we would like to explore what traditional advertising can do for us in terms of cost and results, and also digital advertising once we have the website updated, right? And with the proper call to actions to start seeing how that can impact in the DAI circulation, okay? So those were the updates of the brand team. And if you have any questions, go ahead.
So I did see one in the chat from David, who was wondering kind of what the distinction was between the brand team and how it plays into the broader core unit structure.
I can answer that. So growth core unit is the core unit, and inside growth core unit we have like two main teams. One is the business development team, and the other one, and we posted about our plan of incubating this team is the brand team. the reason why we decided to do it, it was because inside growth, we were having troubles by not having a brand, a narrative, a Twitter account. So we decided like, okay, let's just like solve this problem and incubate a team. So because of all the intersections between the BD team and the brand team, we decided it was better to have it inside growth. And our goal is that at some point we can just like incubate a new career unit. But in the beginning, we believe it is better to have like these two teams inside growth.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Nadia. Looks like we have a question from Max, if you want to take it away.
Hey there. That was such a wonderful presentation, and you guys are doing such an incredible job. And I'm so excited to see the results of all of your incredible work. Would this be an appropriate forum to talk about the Glass Entertainment Group deal that is being, we sort of have a set of terms, I think, worked out between growth and Glass Entertainment. Maybe we can just let some folks know that might be in the pipeline.
The last time that I talked with the Glass Entertainment Group, we were waiting for the contract.
Yes,
contract draft.
Should get it soon. We've been just trying to clean it up and make it really a good agreement for everybody.
Yep, we are waiting for that.
Max, also remember that actually currently our budget proposal is up for voting, and depending on what maker holders decide, we will be able to continue with the brand incubation efforts, or maybe not. So we just have to wait until the maker holders decide what to do with all these initiatives.
Well, I hope the MKR holders see the value of everything you guys are doing and support your budget.
Cool. Yeah.
Thanks for taking my question.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have anything to add, David, or?
I take it back. I thought of a question, but then I kind of realized what the answer was, so never mind.
No worries. Appreciate the presentation. Give one last call for any other comments or questions before we maybe move on to our next initiative update.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I was waiting for my intro, Peyton, but I guess I'll intro myself.
I guess I have a longer tolerance for silence than you do. But, go ahead and take it away, Mark.
I guess so. Yeah, so this is Mark, also known as AS Strategic Finance. Want to do a brief update on the Makershire Hathaway SPF as we head into the voting period next week. So it seemed like a good opportunity to discuss the proposal in a little more detail. Next slide, please. So as we usually like to do in our presentations, this report is only for informational purposes, does not constitute financial, investment, legal, regulatory, tax advice. And now I will kick things over to Adrian to walk through our balance sheet situation high level.
Thanks, guys. So if you move to the next slide, you'll have heard us numerous times talking about how we need to start managing Maker's balance sheet a bit more productively, particularly in an environment with rising interest rates. So when interest rates are zero all around in the real world, this is less of an urgency, but structurally still quite necessary. So to walk you through the framework that we're looking at this through, on the slide we're showing basically a sort of conceptualization of what Maker's business model is, which is essentially akin to that of a bank. And on the asset side of this, quote unquote, let's not say the word again, we've tried to divide in two sort of big blocks the types of assets that we're holding. One of them is stablecoin collateral, And the other one is the surplus buffer. An accounting, in maker speak, it's technically just an accounting difference, but it still nevertheless represents the equity of the protocol. A secret option that we don't actually show on this slide is all of the collateral that is locked away on top of the DAI issued, but that's beyond the scope of maybe Maker altogether, and we won't get into that. So in terms of managing the stablecoin collateral, there are a number of proposals on the forums already. And we wrote the slides a few weeks ago, actually, but MIP 65 has been approved, and we're glad to see that. And there's ongoing intense work to deliver a return on this and to basically manage the net interest spread between what we earn on our assets and what we're sort of due on the liabilities. What this presentation is focusing on is on the surplus buffer on the equity side. So here, the productivity problem that we've identified is that the accrued interest that the protocol generates essentially sits idle until it's employed. So the proposal that we're currently going to talk through has one ultimate objective, which is to become a sort of fully automated passive manager that can invest the protocol proceeds for yield while it's undeployed for sort of loss absorption. So what Makershire will aim to do is, in a first step, provide a proof of concept by looking for low risk strategies that don't compromise the principal that's invested, but that nevertheless aim to generate some amount of conservative return on the equity, and with the view to eventually roll out all of the permission aspects of this to turn it into a fully permissionless system. So on the next slide, I'll kick it over to Mark to explain the actual proposal in a bit more detail.
Thank you, Adrian. So what is Makershire Hathaway? Makershire is a 10 million DAI SPF managed by SF with the support and input of the community under the supervision of risk and the prospective lending oversight CU to earn yield and support DAI liquidity and utility. As most of those in the US are acutely aware, and as Adrian mentioned, inflation has been on the rise, has increased by about 8.5% compared to last year. And our goal is to begin generating yield on our balance sheet assets and support DAI liquidity, creating a new revenue stream for the protocol and bolstering DAI's liquidity. Long-term, we believe TradFi instruments will make their way on-chain, and we should begin researching, investigating, and experimenting with DeFi native yield generation strategies and move to fully automate them, leveraging innovations such as DSS Kiln and the Gelato smart contracts. And as transparency is one of the core values of the TradFi team, we'll be providing frequent reporting and live dashboards so all community members have visibility to the performance of positions. The most basic form of reporting will be the weekly reports, which will detail all of our positions, the networks, protocols, yield, and liquidity score as well. Our monthly reports will be a bit more comprehensive, providing in-depth discussions of each position and how the value of the position performed over the period, both in generating yield and how we supported liquidity for DAI. Lastly, we will provide a quarterly report that includes all the aforementioned as well as risk and risk-adjusted return metrics. And regarding the return of funds, we have a few options. We can compound the yield back into the SPF and Treasury. We can return profits to the surplus buffer over a defined period, or we can use the profits to burn MKR or fund other investments that the DAO seeks to fund. We will ask the community for guidance regarding this decision. Next slide, please. Thank you. So there are a number of misconceptions and mischaracterizations of what Makershire is and what it seeks to accomplish. So we want to clear some of them up for the community and everyone on this call. And Makershire is not an active trading fund, prop desk, hedge fund, etc. Hedge funds are market neutral strategies with long shorts that offset each other to be market neutral. Makershire is mostly passive treasury management with extremely low complexity that we'll get into in more detail shortly after this, and with quite well understood risks. It'll be properly, it's also not a SPF that we have unilateral control over. This is going to be properly supervised by risk and lending oversight, and will have veto power over any allocation decisions. It's also going to be a protocol-owned multi-sig through MIP 47. So it's not a multi-sig that's controlled unilaterally by SF or any individual. It's also not a fund that can allocate to any crypto asset under the sun and buy shitcoins. It's going to be limited to ETH, staked ETH, DAI, MKR, and primarily USDC. But if there's USDP or other trusted backed stablecoin yield farms, we will also include those within the scope of the SPF. And then lastly, this fund will not be something that will drain the surplus buffer. It's in reality a part of the surplus buffer. All funds will be returned at the end of this period is the goal, unless the DAO decides that this was a worthwhile venture and value is proven through liquidity generation and in yield generation. And again, like I just will reiterate that this is protocol owned and fully governed by token holders, and they can revoke the ownership of this multi-sig at any point. And I'll now kick it over to June, who's our summer intern from Wharton this year, to talk a little bit more of the allocation details.
Thanks, Mark. So lastly, if we can go to the next slide real quick. We'd like to give an overview of the strategies we'll be implementing and looking into. So first off, we have stable LPs. These include mostly DAI paired with one or more other trusted backed stablecoins, and then staked for rewards, primarily USDC. These have no impermanent loss, and so therefore will be a heavily weighted part of the strategy. Additionally, a smaller tranche of the allocation will be in ETH and or Maker LPs. Our exposure on the volatile end will be limited to ETH and Maker, as well as trusted derivatives of ETH, such as Lido staked ETH, as we just said. Finally, we'll also explore single-sided staking, consisting of stablecoins, primarily DAI, as well as USDC and ETH if good opportunities arise. As for the networks we'll be operating on, our focus will be primarily on mainnet and L2s and sidechains such as Arbitrum and Optimism and Polygon that have been proven to be safe. Other chains such as Avalanche, Phantom, and Near and Aurora ecosystem can provide some asymmetric returns at times and will be evaluated on a per chain basis with less significant positions relative to mainnet and L2s. And finally, an utmost priority for us is security. So we will only be going into protocols that are considered DeFi blue chips, have transparent teams and good community rapport, and are fully audited by top auditing firms. Some examples of these are, as you know, Uniswap, Curve, Sushi, Gelato. Ultimately, just to reiterate, our goal is to earn some passive interest on stablecoins and stable assets, bolster DAI utility, and gradually automate deployments and execution for optimization and safety. Thank you all for coming, and we'd like to open the floor up for questions.
Awesome, and we definitely have a few trickling in. I saw Kianga's first. I don't know if you wanted to voice it or have me read it off, either way. All right, sounds good. So Kianga was asking how we felt about governance for some of these other protocols, potentially some of the items that we were, or some of the assets or what have you we're investing in could give us governance power over there. And just wanting to know if
I guess I'll go ahead and
go for it.
Yeah, so it's probably three elements. To the extent we're using some of these other protocols, what enhanced capability should we have, or do you foresee we would have to engage in and participate or follow along within their own DAOs, just as part of our, I guess, risk management in a sense outside of the financial piece? Secondly, would be if we were to receive any governance tokens as a result of any of the strategies, how we would manage that. And thirdly, assets in our treasury like ENS and other governance tokens. How do you see kind of meta governance combining with the overall kind of treasury management approach? Obviously, I have some thoughts on these topics, but I wanted to hear where where the team is in terms of those issues. Thanks.
Thanks for the questions, Kianga. In terms of Makershire, any tokens unrelated to the ones that are approved through this proposal, which are ETH, Maker, and primarily stable coins, will just be sold and reinvested into the strategy. So a lot of bridges, for example, will provide their native token as well as protocol fees, or even certain LPs are boosted with liquidity mining incentives. Those will just be sold and compounded to maximize yield. If there's a particular asset that the DAO thinks is worth acquiring, we could certainly have a signal request or something to accumulate that rather than sell it and reinvest in the yield strategy. But I think just from a risk perspective, it's a lot more conservative just to sell the tokens and not consider like the valuation of them, because you're kind of making a bet that the token will appreciate relative to the dollar if you're going to take that approach. And then broadly, meta DAOs, it's not something I've spent a ton of time thinking about, to be honest. Personally, when we got the ENS airdrop, I initially thought, okay, maybe we should just dump it because it's spiking right now, and I don't know anything about the business of ENS, how the tokenomics work, and I would assume most maker holders are in the same boat. If there is some sort of cross DAO business of sort that manages those types of relationships and can help us do partnerships and figure out different ways we can collaborate, I think that could be, if it's beneficial for Maker, I think we should pursue that. Like if a protocol that we own tokens of is helping with DAI liquidity, for example, or if they're willing to integrate Maker vaults or leverage them somehow through their treasuries or otherwise, I think that could be attractive for Maker holders. But it's definitely a complex issue and something that's new relative looking at DAOs to traditional companies. And I see Makerman saying invest in LP airdrops. Yeah, we definitely have thought about putting a proposal into basically LP ETH ENS to earn yield on it, because if we're not going to sell it, then we may as well earn some yield on it. But we have not done the math on that and how attractive that opportunity is yet, but definitely something we can look at.
I'm seeing a few other questions. I think the first one I saw was from Du asking, essentially what happens if there are any losses due to these operations.
So yeah, I mean, we are exposed to ETH and MKR's price if we are LPing and ETH MKR and ETH DAI, for example. But we believe the historical yields are exceedingly attractive relative to that risk. And also we get the benefit of providing liquidity for DAI and for MKR, and we're LPing in those pairs. So I'll reiterate, this is both a goal to earn yield and also to provide liquidity for DAI, especially as we start to see more traction on L2s. And if you're looking at the L2 beat.com website, you'll see that more and more ETH and more assets are being moved to L2s over time. And if you look at DAI's liquidity on Optimism relative to Arbitrum, you'll see that we have very little usage and liquidity on Arbitrum. And one of the things that Makershire aims to do is help bootstrap liquidity in areas where DAI is not really present. So from that perspective, we're going to trade off yield for liquidity to hopefully get DAI bootstrapped in some of these situations.
Thanks, Mark. Do you feel like that answered all your questions? I think that went to the crutch of it, but if not, let us know in chat. And a reminder, if you want to hop on the mic, use a raised hand. Otherwise, I'll just keep scrolling through chat and reading out questions. Some debate, I guess, obviously on what should be done if we do receive or become eligible for airdrops. I guess the point
If we get
Transmit the
airdrops from
cryptographic, yeah.
LPing, is that the question? Yeah, I think MakerMan's idea of LPing the airdrop, as long as it's with like ETH or DAI, could be attractive, especially with DAI. That would be most interesting for us. But it really, I don't know, it kind of depends on the, I think, strategic interest of Maker. Like, is this a token that is directly supporting DAI in some way, or is it not at all? If it's not at all, you know, there's a decision to be made whether we should just sell it, or if we think that selling it is going to get Maker removed from future airdrop lists, that's, you know, another consideration, right? Because if you're looking at it purely financially, a lot of the times I'd probably just dump the token. But if you're, you know, thinking that this is gonna, you know, limit the airdrop we receive in the future, then okay, maybe we hold it because maybe there's something that's of strategic importance down the line that can really help DAI. The chat's moving too fast for me to. So if anyone, yeah, I don't know if how you want to do this, Peyton.
Yeah, I try to keep up as well. There's a few we haven't addressed as well from above. One is kind of simple, I guess. Have you spoken to MakerBurn or DieStats about, you know, potentially integrating wherever you deploy your assets, so the community can easily keep track of?
Yeah,
where,
yeah, 100%. We'd like to have this on MakerBurn, and he's been great to work with, helping us out with a lot of different things. Until that's fully up and running, we're going to build a Dune dashboard to monitor all the positions, and you can just check on it, just like you can our financials, and see it in real time.
Awesome. And yeah, a reminder that
and he said he'd add it in the chat if no one saw that. Thank you, MakerBurn.
Sorry, MakerBurn. Cool. I see Tim raising his hand, so I'll call on you just a second, Tim. But yeah, a reminder that, like, for the recording, like, anything that's spoken will be easily accessible. What's in the chat, maybe not so much. So if you have a point that's not a question, like, do feel free to raise your hand so we can engage in that discourse. Take it away, Tim.
Well, there's a couple that I just figured I would summarize. The basically well phrased by Brian, I think. What's the chain of custody look like after it leaves the surplus, which I think is also emphasized by other folks. You could phrase it as sort of checks and balance. I think for the purposes of the call, strategic finance is sort of set an example for transparency. But if you guys just sort of want to talk about how you make sure that you're going to be accountable for that, I think that'd be super helpful.
Sure. So I guess, you know, first step is going to be modeling and assessing the different position options that we have in front of us. And we've already started building a framework, which we hope to share with the community. Some that are in our StratFi Discord may have seen a draft release of that was leaked ahead of time. But everything is going to kick off from there, and we can understand and assess the risk and return. Once we, you know, build the allocation for the initial deployment, we'll have risk and lending oversight evaluate each position. And these positions, the only eligible positions will be those that are on networks and protocols that we have, you know, extremely high confidence in. So like the blue chips, like Uniswap, you know, Curve, Gelato, et cetera. In terms of like, so that's like the major checks and balances are, you know, risk, lending oversight, and then community can also, you know, decide to, you know, change the allocation. If there's something that's allocated that the community thinks is too risky, we can definitely change that. And in terms of actually, you know, deploying the positions, there's the 5 of 7 multi-sig using 𝘠𝘠𝘠.
All right. Thanks for that response, Mark, and for bringing it up, Tim. One question I saw that wasn't addressed was the potential time risk, right, for locking and unlocking on L2s. Not sure if you've thought about that.
The time risk?
Yeah, essentially, like the funds won't be available for a locked period of time, right, if you go on L2s. So if something were to happen or we were to need access to the funds, they wouldn't be available.
Well, Maker Teleport will soon be deploying, but there are a number of bridges that we could move across to return funds from L2. But, you know, generally, these positions are going to be longer term, like passive positions that we're going to require very little, you know, active management. You know, we're talking like, you know, months to even the full year, we could LP into a USDC DAI LP and literally just hold it the entire duration of the SPF. I think like longer term, if you're like thinking about where we see this going long term, is we see tons of traditional financial instruments moved on chain, and we see DeFi as a whole growing tremendously over the next 5+ years. And so, when we can leverage some of these innovations that automate these positions, I can really see a future where we have basically like a master, treasury framework that allocates the surplus buffer to like predetermined percentages based on a multitude of factors driven by risk and our asset liability management, like the lending book portfolio. And then like using, DSS Kiln and these other automation smart contracts, it can be fully automated end to end. And we're, very, very early in this, and we don't necessarily have the resources to prioritize this type of automation today. But, I'm not a technical person, but in speaking with our engineers and some other engineers, we feel this is very much possible.
Awesome. I think that covers the majority of a lot of this stuff. And I know we do want to save some time for open discussion, which could be related to this, but doesn't have to be. Any last points or questions anyone would like to get in? David's physically raising his hand, I see on camera. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, my quick question was, with just the $10 million fund to do all of this, I guess my question is like, how do gas costs kind of eat into the yield? Like, if you have too many strategies and too many conditions that require you to like adjust positions, like, do you guys foresee that gas is like a significant sort of cost to maintaining this, or is it a lot more passive in practice?
It's a lot more passive in practice. So I think the gas costs will be insignificant. We're going to be holding positions pretty longer term, especially in crypto terms, and not looking to rebalance. So when you're thinking of like the Uniswap V3 positions, especially in these volatile pairs, we'll be setting more conservative, wider ranges. So we don't have to do that. But at the same time, we need to fully understand the yield and impermanent loss trade-off that comes with setting those positions. So there's a number of models like out there which you can use to quantify that, but the crypto markets can be quite unpredictable, as we've seen. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that ETH would be where it is today, a couple months out from the merge. But yeah, I think gas will be quite inexpensive, especially on L2s.
Right, thank you.
You think of kind of a parallel question, like we asked the brand group, how does this play into the core unit structure? And thought that might be a good question for you as well, Mark. Like, is this going to be entirely overseen by strategic finance?
Yeah, so it'll kind of be a partnership between us, risk and lending oversight, but we definitely want to source community input on the LPs. So if there's an attractive opportunity that comes up and someone in the community mentions it, I know Makerman is particularly plugged into different yield and has a ton of experience with LPs and has thought deeply about protocol owned liquidity. So there's definitely other people in the community that share that interest. So we are looking to have this be like a community-owned type of project, but with that said, we're going to be strongly biased towards safer positions.
And in the short term, does that mean like an increase in FTEs for any of these groups, or is it kind of just going to be managed under existing?
No increase, just managed under the existing team.
Awesome. Appreciate you following up on that. Just thought it might be good to let everyone know scope wise what we're considering. All right. Obviously, this seems to generate a lot of chat, some of which is directly related to it. Some of it is perhaps branching into other areas. So it seems like a a good kind of time to kind of cue it off for a little more open discussion. First,
Yeah,
just calling
just
out
to close out real quick, if anyone has further questions, feel free to message us publicly in our Discord channel and MakerDAO official, or you can obviously DM us as well. We'll happily talk through these questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. We've seen a lot of stuff about comparing L2s and different LP positions. So perhaps open up to the broader audience here and make sure we can work through some of this stuff without ping ponging it too much back and forth. So this would normally be our discussion segment. David, I don't know if you had, it was more of an open mic presentation if you wanted to kick that off.
Yeah, sure. We set up this open mic because we realized that having like a dedicated topic every week sometimes can get exhausting and can feel a bit forced, especially if there's not like a really clear topic and like a really well-structured conversation around it. So today we're giving the community a bit of a break, even though we did spend a ton of time talking through the initiative updates, which I loved. But today, yeah, it's an open mic and it's loosely centered around like initiatives at Maker, period. So if you're curious about an initiative, a specific initiative, you can ask, and if if the lead is here, they'll happily give a brief update on it if they're willing. If you have burning questions about specific initiatives, now's a chance to discuss them. And yeah, that's pretty much the loose idea for today's discussion segment.
So I know we had a lot of chat kind of on different LPs, and there's been some good stuff about like DAI liquidity as well. I don't know. Those are topics we'd like to explore, but if you have a question or comment or an update you'd like to give.
Generally speaking, I think one update I am interested in hearing is about the self-insurance fund that was proposed a while ago. I believe 𝘰𝘪𝘰𝘳 was the lead on that, and I know 𝘰𝘪𝘰𝘳 was on this call. I think he still might be. 𝘰𝘪, are you willing to give a quick update on how that's been going, where it is, blockers, etc.?
Yeah, sure. Do you hear me?
That's a yes.
Okay, so thank you, David. Yeah, as you probably recall, we are working on SES. One of our flagship projects at SES is setting up a self-insurance fund. And yeah, to put you into context, basically what we want to do is get something similar like a D&O insurance in the traditional corporate world. Basically, a D&O insurance, what gives is a liability insurance for, in a traditional corporation, is for managers, for top managers, C-level managers, legal counsel, and so on. And this insurance reimburses managers or employees that are personally sued, even though a manager is an employee of an organization, it could be subject to personal lawsuit. And if you translate the situation or when we have at DAOs, we are of course much more exposed. We have not a legal entity, and the biggest risk, the biggest legal risk is the possibility that our organization is considered a general partnership, which implies unlimited liability. Basically, anybody can get sued, and not only because one's actions, but because of actions of others. And I see that as the most high risk, legal risk that we have at DAOs. I have made this project as my top priority because of this, because I find it that it's not admissible that we that are spending all our energy and time and hearts and soul in this project, we bear this unsurmountable risk, this personal risk. And we are working, we hired from our grants budget, we hired an insurance company, an insurance broker and risk management company. They're elaborating for us a feasibility study. And in this first phase, we are currently now in a very important phase of this project. We are assessing the overall legal risk exposure of MakerDAO. We are going to conduct interviews with facilitators of core units and delegates. So in the first phase, we are going to cover permanent contributors, I don't know, around 130. Permanent workforce that we have and the recognized delegates. And the first phase of the fund will be to cover legal costs of defense if somebody is sued or if somebody is target of a regulatory action. So these two contingencies. Further on, this is only like the first step of a very long-term risk management strategy for MakerDAO. Later on, once we have this fund set up in place, we can extend it. We can go to the insurance market and place some of this risk on the insurance market. Even for traditional companies, there is this possibility of what is called a captive insurance, so like a proper insurance company that is owned by the organization. So that could be a further development. So the idea is to provide a comprehensive risk transfer strategy for MakerDAO, and the self-insurance fund is the first phase. And in the first phase, it will only cover legal costs of defense. So we are now preparing a survey. We will start probably in the second half of next week conducting this survey. I would like to interview contributors, facilitators of core units and recognized delegates. We will ask them, we have a questionnaire, but I would like to spend like half an hour with you to understand what are your perceived risks and your real risks. What do you have in place? So there are plenty of legal entities involved who probably many of the contributors facilitators have already some type of liability insurance or some type of protection or even D&O. So that's why we want to assess like an overall assessment of the risk exposure. And we will start off next week, and then like the next big milestone, probably 1 or 2 months, is to determine the legal vehicle, the legal structure. Which could be a trust, but part of this feasibility study includes some legal analysis on what is the best structure vehicle for this. So stay tuned. I will start contacting you probably second half of next week, and I am at your disposal if you have further questions. And thank you, David, for the opportunity of updating you guys on this.
Yeah, thank you for that really great update. I guess a quick question is, when are you going to start reaching out to people or like doing the feasibility research?
So we have already we started with the insurance company with the feasibility study, and right now we are like drafting the survey, drafting the questions. So next step with the community is to to interview as much as people as I can to make an assessment of what is our exposure. That will determine how large should be this fund. There are many implementation questions that we have to figure out, but next step is determine our risk exposure, which will determine how large should this fund be, and thinking only primarily in the risk of legal costs of defense. Further on, we could consider on developing this fund for covering other things, like for example, claims from third parties and so on, but those are more sensible topics. We're going to start with only with the legal cost of defense.
Yeah, cool, sweet.
I know last week we talked a little bit about that prioritization framework that is now up on the portal, and we got some feedback from delegates kind of being confusing or overwhelming, right? So I'm curious if anyone has had a chance to look over the descriptions, if they're helpful, if there's any feedback or any questions on that initiative, I guess, to present it as something within this open mic.
I guess my quick question about that whole initiative is, what has been the most poignant negative criticism of it, or like what's the biggest problem of it now that you've at least like had one run of it, even though it was a little unsuccessful because of the technical difficulties. But I'm curious, like, yeah, you've been getting a lot of feedback. What's the worst of it?
Yeah, I guess the biggest risk, right, is that it doesn't actually push us in any further direction, right? We've had some feedback that perhaps options are too specific on direct and technical work. And you know what happens, like technical work can get completed while it's going, like there's a bunch of edge cases essentially that can make it so the feedback we get is not useful. But I guess in terms of like most poignant criticism, perhaps, is just the idea that we're kind of adding more complexity, right? Adding another vote to take place, another thing for core units to consider. And at the end of the day, you know, does it really further us towards those goals, or does it just give us more to talk about rather than do? And I think that's kind of remains to be seen, right? Either we get something worthwhile out of the initiative, or we don't. And obviously hoping that that'll spur on good conversations and stuff, and that'll lead to action. But to me, I think that's probably the most poignant criticism. Like, okay, well, the system's not working. Well, let's add another element to the system and see if that helps.
What's been the biggest like positive criticism, or I guess that doesn't really make sense, but what's the biggest like pro of doing it? Have you seen any like excitement or people sort of thinking how it might actually create a lot of impact, or making a case for that?
I definitely hear like the problem over and over again, and like some of our CU coordination calls where it's just like, okay, well, we're all independent core units, so what do we actually spend our time working on, and how do you do that without it becoming like a smoky back room, right? Where this group of stakeholders is actually making all the decisions. That's like very opposite of the DAO, right? So the hope is that by having this kind of public, transparent, free-flowing snapshot of where MKR holders are sitting, that'll make it easier for us to align resources, to have purpose-driven meetings, right? Rather than just syncing up over everything that two core units could possibly have in common. With some priority input in place, you can say, all right, well, these top three things are the most important, and we could work together to achieve parts of them. So that's the hope, that's the vision, and it seems like it is certainly needed. The question is just if this is the right tool to help us get us there or not. I feel the same way, David. I don't want to be monopolizing the talking time.
I guess maybe something that might be helpful, and I prepared these slides just to spark a conversation if people want. They're, don't judge me for them too badly, they're just draft slides that I put together in just some drawing software, but they kind of explored different levels that you could look at MakerDAO, right? There's the core unit levels, so we have 20 different core units, and they're all working on a bunch of different products and initiatives. So here's like the product level that I have. Obviously it's not complete because L2 is a lot deeper than just L2, right? Yeah, there's kind of like nuance to all of this. But yeah, here's kind of the product level of the DAO. If anybody is curious to focus in on any one of these specific things. Then there's also the initiative level, which I've been kind of struggling to understand because people seem to have kind of different opinions on what initiatives are, how they're grouped, etc. So there have been some proposed, but anyway, here's kind of like also an incomplete, but has like a lot of the main initiatives that are happening. Things like I don't know why financial reporting is there twice. Apologies for that. But things like delegates, core units, core unit incubations, governance process improvements, like things like voter committees, the different dashboards, even things that aren't approved yet, proposals and actions like task forces, DAI market making. We covered Makershire Hathaway today. We covered the self-insurance fund a bit today. There's also the initiative for the capital raise, which is still in proposal form. And yeah, so here's a bit of something to look at if any questions get inspired.
I think this
Yeah,
is it.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of us have been like exhausted from the amount of calls today, so it might be worth it to just end the call a bit early and give people back some time and let people kind of enjoy the Thursday a bit.
Seems reasonable today. I do appreciate kind of the lively discussion around the Makershire as well as the brand update. Any closing thoughts or questions before we officially end the call? All right, thanks again for those who joined us live. If you're watching the recording, nice job getting to the end. We'll be here same time, same place next week. And please remember, let's keep the conversation fun in the Maker forums. There's threads for everything we discussed today. And we really appreciate you taking the time to put the thoughts up somewhere where they'll kind of persist rather than being forgotten about in just a meeting. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.